The Old Testament has many what we would now consider immoral pronouncements, such as slavery. And I think he knows we were going to go with this because he said, insert indentured servitude, dodge here. Also, taking virgins as the spoils of war, not suffering witches to live, and treating females as property of the husbands or father. He says, while I'm delighted that such a large number of modern Abrahamic religion adherents have set these things aside, I am curious to know the methods which are used to select what is considered moral, and if those unfortunate Old Testament passages were not intended to be moral instructions, how unfortunate for those who have suffered at the hands of those who were mistaken. So just a light question here.
Sure, yeah. Well, there's about 10 questions in there, but let me just address it broadly. The first question I ask somebody who brings that up is, do you consider yourself an atheist? Because if the person does, as this individual apparently does, then this person has no moral grounds by which to judge anything right or wrong, including anything in the Bible he or she doesn't like. This is why I say in the book, he's stealing from God to argue against him, right? But it's a fair question for him to say, look, you claim your God is a God of love, yet I see these things apparently in the Old Testament that do not appear loving. So it's a problem for your worldview, right? That's a fair question for him to ask. Okay. Now, I could address any one of these, but I can't address them all here. We won't have time. Let's see. Which one do you want to address? Let me see. How about you want to do slavery?
Never got asked that question before.
Let's do slavery. Yeah. What do you say? Let's do slavery. You want to do slavery? Slavery in the Bible. Okay. Okay, first of all, Old Testament slavery was not race-based forced servitude. It was a voluntary means of working off debt or keeping captives from mustering a rebellion, okay? In the ancient Near East, people would be in such a desperate situation that they would basically sell themselves into a indentured servitude state. And your friend is calling it a dodge. It's not a dodge. He just doesn't understand that that's exactly what it was. It wasn't the kind of slavery we had 150 years ago here in America. It was people that put themselves in that situation so they could work for food and shelter. Okay? Secondly, slave trading is condemned in the Bible, not only in the New Testament, but also the Old Testament, as you can see here. In fact, it's punishable by death in the Old Testament. So the kind of slavery that he has in mind is prohibited in both the Old and the New Testaments. Thirdly, the Bible teaches that all are made in the image of God. Slave and master are equally human, protected, and they're one in Christ. Exodus, Deuteronomy, Job, and Galatians all say the same thing. And then finally, well, one more thing. Jesus came to set the captives free, Luke 4:18. Finally, the Bible's main goal is spiritual redemption, not social reform, but redemption achieves reform. Now, the best book on this is this book right here, called Is God a Moral Monster? Making Sense of the Old Testament God by 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗜𝗔𝗟. Okay? So if he really wants to get into this and wants to take a fair reading of it, then I would recommend him get Is God a Moral Monster? In fact, 𝗦𝗢𝗓𝗏 is going to release a new version of this quite soon. I just talked to him recently about it. But that book has been around since 2009. It addresses every single thing he brought up, and something he didn't break up, rape in the Old Testament as well. So. Now, he may not think that these answers are good answers. Well, that's up to him, but there are answers to this.